Hi, welcome back to Three Bridges. I'm Mark. This is my layout in the loft. So it's April 26th and this is sort of the first half of the month, and I'm going to concentrate on the London side of my loft and also concentrate on the underground. So I'll give you an overview of what I'm going to try and do. If you watched the last one, you'll have seen that I talked about doing the next scene beyond Harrow on the Hill Station Road Bridge. But in order to start the work on that first, I need to sort out some other things further down the loft for where the two underground lines effectively loop underneath my London stations. So I'll show you. So this is on the last one I was talking about, this new scene section effectively. It's about 1.8 meters long, so about 5 feet, and it runs from where Station Road Bridge here down to this entrance hole here. So this is where two of the London Underground trains effectively go to what I call the east end of the layout, and then the other two lines cut through underneath where that retaining wall is to my sort of west end line heading off to Marylebone Station. So all of this track work, it works, everything's fine. The points are all manual at the moment, so one thought is, do I motorise them or do I put sort of point rodding in so that I can at least access them? At the moment it's not a problem, but obviously when I put in the next level up, it's going to be quite a long reach over. So, and I have got the space just in front there to do something to control the points. And if I adjust again, I've also got, this is my control box for the whole of the underground, and I've got space to, if I wanted to do and I've got space on the board, so I might give that a go for this part of the layout. But the important bit is up to about here. As I say, the track's fixed. I've got the smaller sort of set track points, turnouts, simply for to get it in. And with the underground trains, it doesn't matter too much. They do get thrown around, but my memory of back in the 70s is when you went over points on the underground trains, they would slow down and you did get thrown around. So it does feel quite prototypical to me. Anyway, beyond there though, the track's not fixed. It's basically just been laid and sitting, and the trains have run quite okay. I haven't had really any issues, but now's a good time. I've had a whole sort of year cycle with the track down to give it a clean up and also fix the track now so that it's permanently in position, and then I can do some of the scenics on the sections where I want to. So I'll show you where the rest of the track goes just briefly. So we're down the far end of the loft now. So this is where the underground lines, so you've got some passing under here. So this is where the London Station board was sitting. I've basically cleared off all the trains, taken off the track. It was all just sitting there temporarily, and removed the board so I can actually access the lines. And then they curve around and pass in front, heading towards underneath my Marylebone Station. So this is all the track that I now need to fix. Because it's a third radius curve at the end, I've got set track just because it made it a lot easier to do it for those two curves, and I don't then have to worry about the track trying to move around. It's quite happy. It's not too critical where the track sits on the board. I've made it quite generous. I'm starting on this first back scene. This is it's about 3 feet long, so about a metre, and coming up to just under a foot deep at this end. It's sort of slightly triangular in section, and this is where I was going to have warehouses. So this sort of, and I'm going to build it all on a cardboard base so I can just drop the scene in, work on it down here, and then just drop it into place up in the loft. So for the buildings, I'm basing a lot on this. So this is the Scale Scenes low relief warehouse unit, so, or factory. I'll stick a picture up of what you get when you buy it. But it's quite an adaptable kit, and so there's various versions. So the one that you've seen on the screen has a dock loading bay here with the canopy over the top, but for this one I took it off. And so I've adapted the kit in various forms. So I've got this sort of unit, which will go next to it. So I've put an extra layer of the windows in, and then created my own door at the front and cut some extra holes through, so that this whole part of the bottom bit is sort of a kitbash of the top half. And then I've got another hinge unit, so that's how it's going to look. What I remember is the old warehouses back in the early 80s, so the end of the 70s. So if you go down to London now, it's all new stuff, new builds, and all sort of the more modern structures. But this was the period where a lot of stuff was shutting up, closing down. A lot of factories had closed down, being boarded up and getting close to being demolished. So I want to go for that sort of old style, that the factory, nearly 100 years old, is on its way out. And then my last sort of kitbash was, again, taking the same structure. I went for this, so this is sort of inspired by more like the Dockland scenes, where you've got the different warehouse entrances and obviously the crane canopy overhead, and another sort of entrance created. So again, it's all just taking that basic scale scenes kit and adapting it to what you want. So it's Easter Sunday morning. I've been catching up on some of my favourite YouTube. So Eric French, Underground Eric, was back, which is great to see. A new bit of layout, and then some Go Via Go Home after dark. So I think it usually comes out about 1 o'clock in the morning. With the storm last night, I did wake up and caught a bit of it, but not the beginning bit. Anyway, I've watched the first half whilst building this. So at this end, I've got 3 sort of factory units. The road needs to sort of go back that way, so I need a wall. So I've got this view down the side, road down the side of this end unit. So I've made up a wall unit from odds of brick, and then doing some painted up card to give it the 3-dimensional look. It doesn't matter too much that the colours don't match exactly, because obviously this is painted, this is printed paper, because it'll be on an angle. You won't see the two in contrast like this. Anyway, I thought, I'll try and stop shaking the camera around. Why am I building this unit? So everything with my layout revolves around parts of my life, really, and this unit is the same. So the as I was travelling into London, you'd see a lot of old factory units in the sort of 70s and 80s, which I do remember. A lot of them, they've now gone, or the warehouses have been converted into flats and stuff, which you get down in London. But after I left Uxbridge, I moved up to the Midlands, and we were living in Leicester, but I was working in Coventry. And I'll put up a picture of this. Is the building I worked in for 9 years on Lockhurst Lane, 72 Lockhurst Lane. And it has that sort of same image. It was part of the old Courtaulds weaving factory. Probably been over there for over 100 years. It still exists today, which is great to see. And also round on the main road, there's another part of the Courtaulds factories from Courtauld Engineering still standing. One side of the road got knocked down, I think, but the other side's still there with the main tower. It's probably a listed building these days. So quite keen to that sort of nod to where I'd spent the first 9 years of my working life. And then obviously also while we were living in Leicester, having left for uni, no furniture, starting up home together with my girlfriend to be my wife. We needed to buy furniture, and so we used to go to a lot of old antiques warehouses, which were literally old factory units in Leicester, which again, so I'm going to make one of these units a sort of antique warehouse, probably the centre one, so maybe some bits outside. The other thing I used to spot when I was travelling down is car, sort of, you'd see flashy sports cars down by dodgy units, and usually just a dog and nobody around. So I'm going to have the end one as a car yard. And more recently, living in the Midlands, in Northamptonshire, my youngest kid used to go bouldering at Weedon Barracks. So if I can find a picture of that, I'll put that up as well. But again, it's the same sort of structures. And again, at the moment, Weedon Barracks has got car, reclamation, brewery, and loads of antique places as well. So it seems sort of fitting that throughout the whole of my life, these sorts of buildings, you still keep going back into them. They are quite fascinating to wander around and see the architecture that has been kept. We haven't sort of knocked them all down and just destroyed our heritage. Anyway, I'll crack on with the building of this. I need to think, now I've got the basic structure, I'll do the road surface painted up before I can start gluing these main walls to this baseboard and thinking about a bit more detailing. So I cleaned up the track and everything's running fine and fixed it, and this is just a test fit, see how the warehouse is, the first part's looking. The road in front's still a bit warped, I need to fix that when I glue it down, but it's a lot larger when you're up here than when you're working on it downstairs, but yeah, it's gonna look okay. So for now I've just got the retaining walls in front of the warehouses, sort of just temporarily placed. I need to ballast everything before I can fix them permanently, but just trying to get a feel for the scene. So this is the view I would get from this sort of height, so it's looking okay. I need to sort of think about the final warehouse at the end and how that extends. So I started on the last bit of warehouse, so this is the second warehouse, I suppose, with the so there'll be the crane housing at the top, and then you've got various doors open at the various floors. So I've sort of built an end wall section that will sit at the side like that. So that's what you see from the tracks, and then this part of the warehouse sort of goes at an angle away following the street of the other building. And then what I need to work on is the back of this sort of section. So for that I'm going to just kitbash up a back wall that's going to have some windows in the top half, and then the bottom half will be just solid brick. But I'm also going to have it staggered so that there's a bit of a roof section halfway up the wall. So I put together the sections for the back wall. Some of you might have noticed it's just plain brick, and whereas the front is all this with stonework. I'm keeping it simple at the back. I remember going to visit it was well, I suppose a country manor house that was never actually completed. They sort of ran out of money halfway through building it. So it's quite a fascinating building to go around, because you can see how these buildings were put together sort of, I don't know, 200 years ago. And one of the interesting bits was, so in the chapel you had the balcony where obviously the Lord of the Manor would sit, and his sort of balcony was very plain. It was just, you know, smooth stone, nothing ornate at all. But when you stepped down in from the balcony to the church below, the columns and everything was carved beautifully. And so the humble farm worker would sit surrounded by beautifully carved columns with swirls and crosses and all sorts. And obviously the reason behind that was that the Lord of the Manor wanted something nice to stare at whilst he was sat having his Sunday sermon, but he wasn't going to pay for his lowly workers to have anything interesting to look at when they stared up at him. So I'm going to keep the back plain, and the front will be the ornate bit that's on public show. made some more progress on the last warehouse unit. So I've got the hoist room put up on the roof. I just need to attach an I-beam. You always used to see old I-beams, but not the mechanism. And then the side walls glued on, attached. Just needs a bit of weathering up. And then this back side seam is taking shape slowly. So I found one of the old Hornby roof vents from the goods shed kit that I sort of kit bashed a while back. So I've popped that on and given a bit of weathering up. And then, having sort of done all of this, I decided I would sort of scratch build the roof part. So this is inspired by a memory from my own life, I suppose. So back in, when I was at Courtauld, so back in my 30s, I ended up looking after the test lab and the autoclave for a while, and one of the additional tasks was I had to go up onto the roof basically to put the Legionella chemicals into the water tank that fed the autoclave. So I've put I built a roof with the sort of the struts as I remember it. So these sort of images where I suppose the walls are underneath coming through, and then I've got this staircase out with the old door, and then the sort of gantry. I still need to put the railings on the side, so they're just painting up and waiting for them to dry, and I'll attach them. And then I've got a water tank at the end there. So from below you wouldn't really see the water tank. I wanted something that sort of looked sort of like a ribbed structure, so I came up with this. It's a fairly easy put together. It's literally just 2 milk carton tops super glued together, painted green, and a bit of silver paint just to highlight the ribs, and a bit of sprue for one of the pipes. I've got another one to fit still. Anyway, it's taking shape. I was going to introduce the 3rd and 4th rail in this episode. I had actually recorded the dilemmas I was having with the Pico 3rd and 4th rail and why it doesn't really work, and some alternative approaches I'm trying, but I'm still waiting for the final approach I'm going to go with, which is I'm waiting on some styrene strips that I'm going to use. So I'll do all that in the next episode.